Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone to this remote public comment hearing for the Energy Facilities Siting Board docket EFSB 21-02/DPU 2259. This case involves the petition of Cranberry Point Energy Storage, LLC, otherwise known as Cranberry Point or the company, to construct a 150 megawatt, 300 megawatt per hour battery energy storage system and ancillary electrical equipment to be located on a 6-acre parcel of land at 31R Main Street, Carver, Massachusetts. We'll refer to this proposed battery energy storage system as the project. On May 11th of 2022, the company filed a petition with the Department of Public Utilities pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40A, subsection 3, for a comprehensive exemption of the zoning bylaws for the town of Carver. The Siting Board will review the zoning petition to determine whether zoning exemption is required for the project and if the proposed use of the land or structure is reasonably necessary for the convenience or welfare of the public. The Siting Board will review the two petitions in one proceeding. The Siting Board previously conducted a public comment hearing for this project last November. The board is conducting a second public comment hearing regarding the project because of the zoning petition. My name is Andre Jabot. I am the presiding officer in this proceeding, and I am conducting the remote public comment hearing tonight. As you can see on your Zoom video stream, there are a number of others with me from the Siting Board who will be involved in the review of this project, including Andrew Green, Director of the Siting Division, Joan Foster Evans, General Counsel of the Siting Division, John Young, the Technical Director of the Siting Division, and Eric Logan Hughes, an analyst with the Siting Division. Council and company representatives from Cranberry Point are participating remotely on this Zoom public comment hearing. Using Zoom, the public will have a full opportunity to see and hear everything said during this hearing and to offer comment and ask questions. For those of you accessing the meeting by phone dial-in, you too can hear everything and have an opportunity to comment or ask questions. The instructions on how to participate were provided in the public comment hearing notice that was published in the newspapers and in notices which were sent to abutters. The public comment hearing notice was also posted to the Cranberry Point website. In addition, you can find the notice on the website for the Siting Board under EFSB Siting Calendar and today's date. Furthermore, the entire petition is available on the Siting Board's website. I will now briefly describe the nature of the filings made by Cranberry Point as related to its proposed project. Next, I will allow the company to make a presentation regarding the project. After that presentation, I will open the floor to comments and questions from members of the public who wish to offer oral comments tonight. Please note that we will also review any written comments submitted by the public by email through Tuesday, July 26th of 2022. Cranberry Point proposes to construct a 150 megawatt or 300 megawatt per hour battery energy storage system to be located in the town of Carver. The project is a standalone energy storage system in that it is not designed to be co-located with renewable energy generation on site. The project will consist of lithium-ion batteries located inside above-ground self-contained enclosures. Cranberry Point would initially install approximately 116 enclosures. The Siting Board will review the project under Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 164, subsection 69J and a quarter. Pursuant to this statute, the Siting Board will review the company's filing to determine whether the proposed project would contribute to a reliable energy supply with a minimum impact on the environment at the lowest possible cost. The Siting Board will also review the zoning petition pursuant to General Law, Chapter 40A, subsection 3, to determine whether the zoning exemption is required for the project and whether the proposed use of the land or structure is reasonably necessary for the convenience or welfare of the public. The deadline for participation as an intervener or as a limited participant is Tuesday, July 26th of 2022, which is also the deadline to provide written comments as outlined in the notice of the public comment hearing. We would encourage anyone who does seek to participate to review the material published on the Siting Board website, which outlines the different ways in which you can participate in our proceedings. For example, you may participate as a full intervener with rights to ask discovery questions of the company, present witnesses, ask questions of witnesses testifying at the hearings, file briefs and motions, and to appeal the decision of the Siting Board. In the alternative, you may participate as a limited participant who can receive filings made in this proceeding and who may file briefs to the Siting Board. The information on participation is also in the public comment hearing notice for this proceeding. If you'd like a copy of the notice and intervention rules, please send your contact information to my email at andre.gibeau@mass.gov. That's ANDRE period GIBEAU @mass.gov. And I can send the information to you by email. Now for the company presentation. May I have appearances of counsel, please?
Good evening. My name is Andrew Kaplan. I'm representing Cranberry Point Energy Storage LLC in this matter. I'm with the law firm of Pierce Atwood, 100 Summer Street, Boston, Mass. 02110.
Thank you. After the company's presentation, we will open the floor for comments and questions from the public. Would the company like to begin with its presentation regarding the proposed project?
We would, and I'd like to introduce you to Allison Sand, who's the project lead.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Allison Sand. I'm the Director of Project Development at Plus Power, working on the Cranberry Point Energy Storage Project here in Carver, Massachusetts. We really appreciate all of you participating in tonight's hearing and meeting, and we look forward to hearing from you. For now, I'd like to give you background on the purpose and function of battery energy storage systems, the plan and benefits of this important project for the region, why we submitted a comprehensive zoning exemption petition, and address some misinformation about the safety of our project and how our company approaches safety. We have also seen some inaccurate information on social media about the project and about storage in general, and want to provide you with all of the facts. To orient everyone, on this slide here, you'll see a proposed aerial rendering of our project site outlined in blue. And throughout this slide deck, I'll show you a few other proposed renderings of the project to help you visualize the location and the project components. First, at a high level, I want to give an overview of what a battery energy storage system does and the role it plays in our nation's ever-evolving electrical system. Essentially, battery storage systems use battery technology to manage variations in power generation on the existing electrical grid. So during periods of oversupply, when there's excess electricity available, a battery project can store that temporarily, and then during periods of peak demand, can discharge or provide that electricity back onto the system when and where it's needed most. Our electrical grid and the power sources connected to it are rapidly evolving, and battery storage projects like this one will enable more renewable intermittent generation to come online, especially as older conventional generation retires. Standalone energy storage projects like Cranberry Point will be connected directly to existing high voltage transmission infrastructure. So instead of using energy from a co-located resource, like a renewable resource like solar, this project will store and discharge energy directly from the electrical grid. The development area proposed for this facility, which you can see to your right in the proposed rendering of the fenced area, is approximately 6 acres in size. In the foreground of this rendering, you'll see the white enclosures, which will house the battery cells. And in the background, you can see the switchyard equipment required for Eversource to connect the project to their existing 115 kV CMAS transmission line that exists to the west of our project in an existing transmission corridor. This site is visually buffered by existing trees to the west, to the south, and east, with the existing Carver substation directly to the north. To clarify, the land on which the project will be installed has not been used previously as a cranberry bog, and the existing bogs will not be impacted by this development. From an environmental perspective, the project has been designed to minimize environmental impacts and avoid all direct wetland impacts. The Massachusetts Environmental Policy Act, or MEPA office, is reviewing Cranberry Point to ensure that any environmental consequences are studied and that we take all feasible measures to avoid, minimize, and mitigate damage to the environment. The project is not located within any mapped Pine Barrens ecosystems, will generate near zero air emissions, and contrary to what has been cited on social media, there are no direct impacts to wetlands. The project will not interfere with heritage agricultural uses, and the site is not located within priority or estimated habitat and is not subject to Massachusetts Endangered Species Act review. Detailed studies in compliance with Massachusetts law have proven that no cultural sites have been identified within the project area. Additionally, battery cells and enclosures are designed to prevent leaking. So given these rigorous product standards, testing, and installation codes for stationary battery storage, groundwater is not at risk. One important factor in siting battery energy storage systems is the proximity to existing electrical infrastructure. And this project, as I previously mentioned, is adjacent to the existing Carver substation directly north. Within the battery facility itself, there will be approximately 116 enclosures, which will house the battery cells and racking systems that are fully enclosed and cannot be entered by humans. These enclosures will be installed in concrete pads set above the grade. Regarding access to the site, there is a perimeter road around the entire project area, and the existing road from Main Street in Carver will be used for access. All predicted noise levels from the project are within the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection standards, and traffic impacts due to initial construction of the project and occasional on-site maintenance as required, along with inspections, will all be minimal. This project will be unmanned, but will be remotely monitored 24/7 from an operations and safety perspective. The Southeast Massachusetts zone of the regional transmission grid is expected to encounter transmission limitations in the near term due to the integration of significant wind power off the Massachusetts coast. Battery systems like ours can help relieve some of this expected electrical congestion. Additionally, increasing renewable energy onshore and offshore in southeastern Massachusetts requires tools like battery storage to mitigate intermittent generation and help stabilize the grid. As mentioned, the project is adjacent to this existing electrical infrastructure and is set back from streets and homes and visually buffered as well. This site is also proximal to onshore landing points of these new offshore wind resources. Cranberry Point will also provide numerous benefits to the state and the local community. Because Cranberry Point will support existing renewable energy and enable future renewable energy to come online, the project will help ensure the stability of the regional transmission system. And unlike other conventional generation sources, this project can respond instantaneously, which will both improve reliability and relieve transmission congestion. This project will also contribute significantly to the Commonwealth's energy storage initiative of 1 gigawatt hour of battery storage by 2025. Local construction jobs will be created for the 9 to 12 month construction period. And in addition, tens of millions of dollars of tax revenue will be provided directly to the town of Carver over the project's life. In fact, Cranberry Point will be one of the top taxpayers in the town of Carver without burdening any town services. This hearing is happening tonight to discuss this project and the associated 40A petition for a comprehensive zoning exemption, which was submitted to the DPU. Since 2018, we've worked closely with the town of Carver's staff and elected officials on our project and the site design. This includes town administrators, planning boards, the Carver Conservation Commission, and the Carver Fire Department. We've had a very positive relationship with the town, and we look forward to continuing our positive dialogue and relationships with the town staff and officials now and throughout the life of the project. In 2018 and 2019, we completed the outlined permitting process in Carver and received a site plan review and special permit in 2019. We will continue complying with all of the conditions that were set forth in that approval. Even though the town has made it clear that the battery storage moratorium, which was approved in April of this year, does not apply to this development, we are requesting a 40A comprehensive zoning exemption to protect the project and the previously approved and granted permits from any future potential bylaw changes. Most importantly, we have heard concerns about risks that these projects can pose, and we want you to know that we approach battery storage project development with a deep safety ethos. Safety is our priority, and we approach product choice, design, location, and installation of these systems thoughtfully and diligently, and utilize experts as well to inform our decision-making and our design process. There are standards and codes in place specifically for stationary battery energy storage systems. Codes like NFPA 855, the International Fire Code, multiple UL standards, and national electric codes all apply to storage projects like Cranberry Point. The products and systems that we use will be fully tested, and the project will be in full compliance with NFPA 855 and UL 9548 codes, which govern the safe installation of battery energy storage systems and the testing for thermal runaway, respectively. The project team for Cranberry Point includes full-time staff who are longtime Massachusetts residents with over 50 years of combined experience in energy storage and electric utility projects. Cranberry Point also works hand in hand with the technical consulting group Energy Safety Response Group, or ESRG, which is comprised of former senior firefighters and industry experts who were deeply involved in the creation of the New York City, Boston, and national safety codes for battery storage. These individuals were also involved in the original development and the continued enhancement of the NFPA 855 standard. For those reasons, we hired the former firefighters at ESRG to review our project and our safety plans in detail to ensure that not only the facility will be safe, but that in the unlikely event of a fire, it is safely managed per the latest codes and standards. As we've progressed through the development of the project, we've kept in close coordination with the Carver Fire Department to review the site design and draft the emergency response plan, which will be finalized alongside the Carver Fire Department prior to construction start. Training for first responders will be planned as well, and personnel will be on site during construction prior to commercial operations of the project. Lastly, we've read on social media and heard a lot of misinformation about the project details, and we want to clarify the facts. The project is not in or near a state-mapped pine barrens. The project's construction will not involve soil mining, and any unneeded soil will remain on the property. It is designed around nearby wetlands and cranberry bogs, but does not impact either. The project is only standalone storage. It is not solar and is not a Massachusetts SMART recipient. And regarding fire safety and protection, if a fire occurs, Tesla, the proposed manufacturer of the system, does not recommend fire suppression nor use of water suppression based on the UL 9540A testing by a nationally recognized testing lab. Based on this recommendation and the testing results, no water should be applied, and the unit that does catch on fire, if that were to occur, will be contained and should be allowed to fully self-extinguish. If the fire department in Carver decides to apply water to adjacent equipment as a defensive approach, that water would not contain materials from the burning unit and would be infiltrated and treated by the project stormwater design in the same fashion as rain. Lastly, NFPA 855 requires explosion control and off-gassing mechanisms to be incorporated in battery energy storage system design. And this was a direct learning from previous events, such as the battery storage fire in Surprise, Arizona, where these features were not included in the equipment. We truly appreciate you all joining tonight for this public comment hearing to learn more about our project in Carver, and we look forward to hearing comments from the Carver community. Thank you so much.
Does that conclude the company's presentation tonight?
It does.
Okay. So we'll move on to public comment. Before we begin, I'm going to outline some guidelines to use in speaking at this hearing. There is a stenographer who is also participating remotely who will transcribe everything said during this hearing. The public comment hearing is also streaming to the Department of Public Utilities YouTube channel. Although the transcript produced by the stenographer is the official record of this hearing. As we are all relying on the internet or telephones to participate, we could experience some technical difficulties, such as sound from speakers, including potential background noise, video and audio issues, and potential delays. Therefore, it is imperative to speak slowly and clearly and allow a speaker to finish speaking before you begin speaking, and to pay attention to the video of the person speaking and to my video. I will raise my hand as a signal on my video if I need to interrupt the person currently speaking to ask them to stop. We may also take frequent breaks. We appreciate everyone's cooperation in participating in this hearing. I apologize to you in advance for any technical difficulties that we may encounter through the course of this remote public comment hearing. If you have problems, please raise your hand using the Zoom toolbar or dial *9 on your phone if you are participating by phone. You may call or text 857-200-0065 for assistance. In the notice, we requested that anyone with interest in speaking notify the siting board in advance if possible. This is a great help due to the mechanics of the remote platform. We begin with those federal, state, and local officials who wish to be heard, and then we will proceed to the members of the public who have signed up to speak in the order in which they have signed up. Finally, we will allow anyone who wishes to speak did not have the chance to let us know in advance. And we ask that you please give your name and address and spell your name for the stenographer and speak slowly and clearly. Again, please stop speaking if you see me raise my hand in my video or if a company response to a comment or question asked is appropriate. I will ask the company representatives if they would like to respond. So we'll begin with public officials. Are there any public officials who wish to be heard? If so, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and one of our staff will take the steps necessary to allow your comments to be heard by everyone and included in the transcript of this hearing. Please identify yourself by giving your name and the office that you hold for the record.
Mr. Chabot, I do not believe we had any pre-registered public officials that we're aware of. If anyone is present who is a public official and would like to speak, please use the raise hand icon at the bottom of your screen. We are not seeing anyone. So the next group of speakers are the public commenters.
So we will now open the floor to members of the general public. We will start with those people who have signed up in advance with the siting board before this hearing in the order in which they made that request. Next, we will take anyone else who wishes to speak. We will ask those who have already spoken once to wait until after everyone has had the opportunity to speak once before seeking to add to their original questions or comments. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand button on Zoom or dial *9 on your phone if you are dialing in.
So the first pre-registered speaker is Charles Myers, who I believe is in the panel.
Mr. Myers?
Good evening. I want to thank you very much for letting me have the opportunity to speak with you. I am someone that has over 20 years of experience in Massachusetts, the Northeast, and the Mid-East states, Mid-Atlantic states with respect to alternative energy siting facilities on it, working with AHJs. I make an observation that it is correct that self-consummation of a thermal event at a BESS is the appropriate way to fight it. However, defensive water spray is used to protect other areas and other instances around it. Paul Rogers, who is a consultant supporting the site, participated in a recent Pacific Northwest National Labs program. And in that program stated that the reason the New York City fire standard looks for copious amounts of water from the supply of a site is specifically because of defensive water spray. I do not see enough water retention areas on both sides of the Carver site to protect the wetlands and the cranberry bogs in the same manner that you would dike an oil tank at a peaker power plant to proactively protect against a future incident on that. So that is an issue. As I look at the past history of this site, I do not see a UL 9540A certificate on file, nor do I see a report on file which would show the chemistry associated with the event. So that is something that should be done on there. So just a couple of things. Thank you very much.
Mr. Myers, before you leave, Mr. Myers?
Yeah.
If you could provide your address, please, for the record.
Oh, sorry, 9 Curtis Lane, Medway, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
May I add one other comment? I was going to comment on seasonality of events because that was something that was referenced in an earlier safety response. And if one goes to the EPRI database, the Electric Power Research Institute, I have provided previously a summary of the EPRI event for battery energy storage. And in fact, there is no seasonality to those events and the potential for water retention and issues around that. So thank you.
Thank you.
Our next pre-registered commenter is Daniel Farini. I will move him to the panel.
Mr. Farini. Mr. Farini, you're on mute. If you could unmute.
Here we go. Just wondering if you can hear me now.
We can hear you now. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Dan Farini, spelled F-E-R-R-I-N-I. I live at 84 Fosdick Road, Carver, Mass. I have been a resident of Carver over 40 years, and I am a member of the Carver Concerned Citizens. And first off, I would like to thank the Energy Facility Sitting Board for taking the time to allow the citizens of Carver and myself to voice our concerns and opinions on the proposed 150 megawatt battery storage facility known as Cranberry Point. I would like to be on record that I oppose the proposed facility in the pending request that has been brought forward by the Cranberry Point to waive the town of Carver bylaws pertaining to this project. I believe in renewable energy, but I also want to protect our town's natural resources such as our water, our natural environment, and mostly all the people of Carver. I have performed some research and would like to present some of my findings on the following. Who we are dealing with. Cranberry Point Energy Storage is owned by a company called Plus Power. Plus Power is a privately funded company, and when you research and finally find the company's website, it does not list any corporate heads such as the CFO, CEO. It appears to be a shell company. If something does not happen or goes wrong, we have no recourse as citizens of Carver on who is the head of the company because it is unknown. They could just pull shop and disappear on it.
Mr. Freeney, if you could speak a little closer to the microphone or a little louder. Thank you.
Excuse me. Also, why would any company that has nothing to hide and is supposedly safe and states that they are environmentally friendly send our selectmen a letter requesting our town moratorium on battery storage facility not be allowed to be voted on by the citizens of Carver? They have gone so far as requesting the board allow to them to override, going to our board and asking to override our bylaws. This is the first incidence of such a request in the state that I have been able to research, and I have never seen this been asked for before. My reasons for this board to deny Cranberry Point as are follows. The battery farm sits in the middle of the most densely populated residential area of Carver. And 99% of the abutters of the project were never notified and have only found out by word of mouth and are pushing to stop this now. Secondly, the Cranberry Point site is over the Plymouth Carver sole source aquifer. This is the sole source of drinking water for 7 surrounding towns. It is extremely vulnerable to contamination. The site is surrounded by wetlands, cranberry bogs, and water reservoirs. And if a lithium fires are extremely difficult or almost impossible to extinguish. As we have heard tonight by Cranberry Point, the method is to let it burn itself out. Most resources include, again, that I have said to burn it out. Our fire department is under the impression that they will hit this with water or the surrounding containers with water to try to cool them down so it does not spread, which in itself is going to cause atmospheric issues and also contamination to our aquifer. During our town meeting in April 2022, 97% of the voters agreed to issue a moratorium on energy battery facilities for 11 months, allowing the town to review and update our bylaws to protect the citizens of Carver from this type of danger. How can the state approve such a dangerous project to come into our small and rural towns with our homes, our elementary school just feet away from the proposed site? Therefore, I am asking you to deny all permits for this project. If this does go forward, who will be responsible for our wells, homes, and lives of our neighborhood and surrounding towns? Again, I am asking these permits be denied so our town can improve our bylaws, and then, only then, should Cranberry Point be able to reapply for the permitting process. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Benjamin Cronin. I'll bring him to the panel.
And just to remind the speakers, as Mr. Farini did. Make sure you give your full name, spelling your last name, and address so that the stenographer can capture that for the record. Mr. Cronin, is he in?
I think he's en route. I hope. Yes.
Mr. Cronin, you're on mute. If you can, thank
Hello.
you.
Hi.
Good
Hi.
evening.
I'm sorry. My internet just went down for a second. Inopportune. I understand I'm up now. Is that what I missed?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, good evening. Thank you to the honorable members of the board for hearing me on this blustery evening. My name is Dr. Benjamin Cronin. I reside at 17 Pill Hill Lane in Duxbury. I'm an environmental historian of southeastern Massachusetts. And again, I grew up next to a cranberry bog in West Duxbury on the Pembroke line, and again, currently live in Duxbury. My PhD is from the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor. I wrote my doctoral dissertation on the towns of early Plymouth County, particularly the efforts the town meetings made to preserve their common resources and ultimately their political sovereignty and their rights to self-government. I'm speaking up this evening because I believe all these issues remain in play and at stake today. In this case, the proposed industrial battery storage for Carver, that Plus Power, Houston-based energy corporation, and its subsidiary Cranberry Point here, putting Carver into exempt from Carver's zoning bylaws. I think both as a member of a town meeting myself here in the Duxbury town meeting and someone who believes in town meeting government, the notion that a frankly predatory Texas energy corporation would try to deny the right to self-government to a town, Carver, whose bylaws go back an unbroken lineage to 1620, because Carver, they may not know, down in Houston was part of Plimpton until 1790, which was part of Plymouth, until 1707. So you're really fighting a lot of history here, and you're fighting some of the last literal direct democracies in the world. We know that the overwhelming democratic will of the town meeting in Carver, as expressed in April, was to ask for a moratorium. And we know that remains the will. We, I think, are all, I'm certainly of the view that everyday citizens don't get to exempt ourselves from the law, nor should Texas energy interests. Again, I would echo the previous speaker and say that we should look at the project itself and its dangers. The Plymouth Carver sole source aquifer lies beneath Carver, as well as Plymouth, Wareham, Kingston, Bourne, and Plimpton, as well as portions of Middleborough and Sandwich. It supplies drinking water for those first 6 towns. That's 130,000 plus people. The claims that we hear from the proponents that this would not somehow have anything to do with the cranberry bog, while at the same time claiming that these cranberry bogs, which are directly proximate, those of us who grew up near cranberry bogs can tell what they look like in a photograph. These claims don't really wash. They frankly are not credible. Incredible in a bad way. Again, the aquifer is all of our beautiful ponds in our region. It is a cranberry bog is where the aquifer has actually become exposed to the surface and filled in with peat. So to say the aquifer is not impacted is simply incorrect. Again, the fact that it is not in a Massachusetts defined pine barrens is immaterial. The entirety of Carver is a level 3 EPA ecoregion that are pine barrens. Our common law goes back to Magna Carta, our law around commons. It's an ancient right. It's a right that is recognized by the Wampanoag on their unceded territory here. And I strongly urge this committee from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to respect the will of the people of the town of Carver, Massachusetts, and the town meeting of Carver, and to reject these frankly spurious arguments from Texas energy interests and their local agents. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Meg Sheehan. I'll bring her to the panel.
Ms. Sheehan?
Oops. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can you see me?
No.
Okay. Well, let's see. Okay, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to address the Energy Facility Siting Board. I won't repeat other people have already said. I think the will of the people was expressed by a moratorium. I believe that this project was passed through the town without a full understanding of what was actually involved. As we've mentioned, there was kind of a under the table, if you will, zoning change in the bylaw that put battery storage into the zoning table that nobody really understood when they voted for this at town meeting in 2018 or 2019. Then it went through the planning board and the Conservation Commission without people being fully informed of what the impacts were. And these people are already living next to a high tension power line that was added to their backyard after they moved in. Carver is 50% environmental justice community. We feel like we are the sacrifice zone for Massachusetts Renewable Energy Program. This project, there's no guarantee that it's actually going to even take renewable energy. I've read that it's going to include storing energy generated by fossil fuels, and the number of battery storage projects that are already existing in Carver is somewhere around 5 or at least. So as you know, the state is requiring battery energy storage systems at ground mounted solar projects in order to qualify under the SMART program. So Carver and Wareham already have 40 large ground mounted solar projects covering probably 1,000 acres. We feel like we have done our share for the state's renewable energy program, and most, if not all of those projects have battery energy storage, lithium ion battery storage on site already. So the cumulative impact of this on these communities and the ability of the fire department to put out, say, anywhere from 10, I don't think anyone has even counted how many lithium ion batteries are already in our communities and on top of the aquifer. That is a question that you need to address. And as you know, this is on top of a sole source aquifer. We understand that water would possibly be used to extinguish any thermal runaway problem with the situation. I don't know what you know about the sole source aquifer, but it covers 199 square miles. It is a very porous aquifer where sand is basically in the aquifer and the transmissivity is very high and very permeable. This site has been surrounded by sand mining that has removed some of the soils, we believe, that would be protecting the groundwater itself. I noticed that the contract calls for the Westons to be able to take sand off the site before it's excavated. I don't know how much sand and gravel would be removed here. We have a crisis in southeastern Mass with sand and gravel removal. We have over 85 sites that are being strip mined, and this is sand and gravel that is being hauled out of our communities, and that is what protects our water supply. I don't want to get on a tangent about this, but when you think about the aquifer in the comprehensive environmental impact assessment of this, you need to realize that over the last 40 or 50 years, our aquifer has already been compromised by strip mining for, in large part, many of the big solar projects that we're talking about, sand and gravel operations. And so to add one more big industrial facility on top of our aquifer where the groundwater table is a mere few feet underneath the top of the surface of the earth. So we're not talking something, you're drilling into bedrock. As the previous speaker mentioned, a cranberry bog is an expression of the groundwater. That is the groundwater right there. So you are basically putting this in the groundwater. And one thing I'd really like to try to understand is why Cranberry Point needs a comprehensive exemption from all Carver zoning. I think this is unprecedented based on our research. That has the EFSB ever completely exempted any facility from all zoning? We could understand, maybe a height restriction or something, but to be exempt from all zoning, that includes a zoning bylaw for the aquifer protection zone. Carver very wisely has an aquifer protection bylaw that covers the entire town, as do many towns in southeastern Mass. So we just think this is the wrong place for this project. You have the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Plant being decommissioned right down the street. Why not put this there? They already have all the emergency response systems in place. Their sirens are located throughout our towns. And I think that to put this right in downtown Carver, so close to schools, as we've explained, to low income housing, in a residential area where it's one of the densest populations in southeastern Mass, 400 feet away from these starter homes, for lack of a better word, this project would never be sited in Newton or Concord or Lexington or Duxbury, where most of the power is going to be used. And those are the communities that are going to benefit from this project. And why should the town of Carver, already burdened with 19 large ground-mounted solar projects, be also burdened with this pseudo renewable energy project that doesn't even qualify as renewable energy because it's storing fossil fuel energy. So there's really no reason or grounds that we can see that they should be exempted from the local zoning bylaws. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Thomas McNamara.
Mr. McNamara? Your microphone is muted.
Good evening.
Good evening. Your son, can you, are you able to speak closer to the microphone? You came in a little choppy. I don't know if it's a technical glitch or.
Thank you. Must be the Wi-Fi. Is this any better?
Yes, that's much better.
Thank you so much. My name is Thomas McNamara. That would be McNamara of 246 Tremont Street in Carver, Massachusetts. And I just wanted to speak up quickly about some of the mechanics of the situation. I'm very grateful that Dr. Cronin spoke up earlier. Again, I'll try not to repeat, but I want to thank the EFSB's interest in the subject. And I'm hearing the part of the board of being called the safety board. And just for the record, I would like to implore the EFSB to do some due diligence, which would include knowing what would happen in an adverse event. And I'm going to be very brief because, again, I don't have the expertise to back it up, but it can be easily found in a number of different sources that once these things are installed and powered up, something as simple as a nail from a nail gun or a stray bullet, whether it be accidental or malicious, when it pierces these cells, will create what's called a current path, which will connect all the electrodes and all the power connectors that commonly transmit them and would have separated them. When they're linked, there can be a full energy release, and the phosphate is the piece of the puzzle there, the effluent that will be flammable, and it can flame up at a temperature as low as 126 degrees. There is a horrible set of combustion that can follow from there. And again, I strongly urge you, we do some homework on this. There's a jet fire similar to a road flare, which has only about an ounce or so of this phosphate in it. And then a couple of horrible events from there that can't be stopped. Once they get up to 150 degrees centigrade, pardon me, there's no way to stop the propagation of the fire with the cellular structure of these things. They're approximately as large as a tractor trailer. And any connected cell is going to go off in the other connected cell. And you're going to be releasing things like potassium perchlorate and strontium nitrate that will cause blindness, similar to the sulfur bombs that are, excuse me, please, the phosphate bombs that are being used right now by the Russians. And I think we all have to have a very clear understanding of what can possibly stop this chain reaction. I know there's not even a proposed plan to attempt to extinguish, but downwind from this, you could have an awful lot of serious poisonings and blindness and other effects when these gases will be released from the lithium iron phosphate should it go up. The only way I can see any safety for these things would be if they were to have a serious thick iron double wall, like a tanker of a ship that's preparing for a collision. And again, I don't want to overstate my my expertise, but I want to make sure that everything is investigated to the nth degree before this is okayed. I think it's the due diligence that we are owed by the safety board. I want to thank you for hearing me out.
Thank you.
I'd welcome comments, by the way.
Our next speaker is William Duggan.
Mr. Duggan? Or is it Dugan? You're on mute, sir. Sir,
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think I can add much to the whole technical
If we may, please start with your name, spelling it, and your address, please. Sorry.
Yep, sorry. Bill Duggan, Duggan, 285 Meadow Street in Carver. What comes to my mind is why, with all the potential negative stuff, would this site be chosen in a heavily residential area? And then the second one is, why would it, and I'm against, getting rid of any, the exemptions or not following the bylaws in town. But I'm also think about Eversource now as the system exists. I mean, they don't store the energy. And anytime we've had an outage in town here, they've been right there to take care of it, down wire, car accident or that type of thing. So, and also to mitigate our outage at say at my house, I have the option of getting a generator, or I know they have probably home storage units, maybe the same type of battery storage that a person could put in there that they could keep charged and not have to put something this large, again, in a residential area with all the potential dangers, even though they're saying these may be mitigated, but it's that one time when the stuff hits the fan that a lot of people are going to be affected, and not to say anything about their property values. So there must be, some other place. If I were doing this and one of the other people would look for a place where there are no people around, no residents, no damage to the environment, and that. So I definitely don't want this, them to get an exemption for doing this, and to. I guess the other thing that comes to mind is the arrogance to think that they can come into a town, any town, and just say, we don't want to be subject to any of your bylaws or any of your rules and regulations. We just want to do what we want to do. And what does that mean if they don't have any specific limits put on them for the future? You know, if they talk about 100, could they put 200 of these in? It just doesn't make a bit of sense as, you know, someone who, I love the rural quality of the town of Carver. And with all the solar stuff going in and the windmills, not in this area, but just some of them, it's just mind-boggling to think that they would choose this area. And it was spoken of earlier, you know, the Pilgrim Power Plant, which is already set up for that, you know, the potential hazards of something going wrong. So that's, you know, there's probably a dozen other things that I thought of over the last few weeks in regards to this, but I appreciate you giving me time to speak. Thanks.
Thank you.
I believe the last pre-registered speaker that we have is Mark Rothfuss, and then I guess we'll go to any additional commenters who'd like to raise their hands and be recognized. I'll move Mr. Rothfuss to the panel.
Mr. Rothfuss?
Okay, sorry about that. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
All right, terrific. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. I'm not going to add a whole lot to what others have said. I'm going to refer to Meg and Mr. Cronin. They both spelled out the myriad of reasons why, you know, first of all, the will of the people really doesn't want something like this for all the reasons they spoke. But I'm just going to reiterate. First of all, I'm at 20 Montello Street, and I'm on the North Carver line in Plimpton. So this isn't lost on me because my backyard is set to become a 300-acre distribution center with all its current problems. So I'm very in tune to this kind of thing. It's not lost on me that this is not a Carver issue. You know, this sole source aquifer covers many, many towns, hundreds of thousands of people. It's just not the place. But I want to revert to the fact that why have planning boards and conservation commissions at all? Like Mr. Cronin said, it's a setting up a slippery slope if they can come to the state and put in for bypassing existing bylaws. I mean, that's the will of the voters, the will of the people. You know, hundreds of years of history of local town governorship. It's incredible to me that this is even being considered. So I'm going to urge the board, the panel here, to say no. These laws are put there for a reason, and you've heard so many reasons to say no. So that's all I have to say, and I'm very concerned. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Mr. Chabot, Mr. Rothfuss was the last pre-registered speaker. So if anyone else would like to comment, please raise your hand. If you're one of our dial-in participants, please dial *9 so we can see you. We have, first one up is Kim Shea. I'll bring her to the panel.
Ms. Shea? You're on mute, Ms. Shea.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is Kim Shea. Last name is S-H-E-A. I live at 148 Plymouth Street in Carver, Massachusetts. I apologize for not pre-registering. I did not have the chance to do that. One thing that I find very concerning is, so this project was approved by a planning board about 1.5 years, 2 years ago. And as I'm reading the project description now, one of the things that really points out to me is that it says verbatim, Cranberry Point would initially install approximately 160 enclosures with space open at the end of each enclosure to accommodate additional battery units in the future as the initial set of batteries lose capacity over time. So out of that entire project description, this is the one sentence that raises a lot of questions for me. And for background, I'm an environment, health, and safety professional for over 26 years in the state of Massachusetts. So I'm very familiar with these types of projects, private company projects. When I read this, I question a few things. First and foremost, when it was the special permits were originally passed by the planning board, if they understood that it was initial in that they had future plans to expand this, which raises bigger concerns for me that now, even that Cranberry Point for 2.5 years has had special permit approvals, has not actually pulled any permits from this town, is now asking for exemptions from our zoning bylaws. And it also raises questions for me as if these batteries if they're already anticipating the batteries losing power over time and needing to expand, why would they not replace, but feel the need to ensure that they can expand? Because I did hear earlier during the presentation that they want the exemption to protect themselves from any future bylaws. And this is based on the moratorium that was passed almost unanimously by the voters of this town. So with that said, I really hope that this board takes this into consideration. The town of Carver really has gone above and beyond in really trying to, be a smart community and do the solar projects. But you reach a point where you become a town that people come to, and they're predatory developers, and we're seeing that now, and we're worried. Everybody on this town, almost 90% of this town is on private wells. I'm on a private well. I am concerned about my water for other reasons, and this is only adding to it. So a special permit for our bylaws, I don't have a problem with. Where my problem lies is that we have this private company entity coming into the state saying that they're exempt under Section 3 as a public utility company, which they clearly are not, and that they can be exempt from our bylaws. And Section 7 of that same Massachusetts general law says that no official can override or bypass bylaws or approve new land uses that break existing bylaws. So those are my concerns, and I appreciate your time for listening to me tonight. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another person who's looking to get on as a commenter, Patty Cooney.
Ms. Cooney? Ms. Cooney, you're muted as well.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Patty Cooney, Cooney. I live at 5 Canterbury Path in Carver, and I don't have anything much to say other than the fact that I don't agree with having this battery storage in our town. Just like the other folks had said, it's not the place to do it. There's so many other places, like they had said, the power plant. I've lived here my whole life. I couldn't imagine having, a fire or a groundwater messed up. And I think there's better places for it. I'm all for clean, renewable energy, but in a place that it makes sense. Like the other folks had said, the town unanimously said that they don't want this here. It has been, put out there. Now people weren't totally aware of it before, but now we are, and we're saying we do not want this in our town, and we're going to do whatever we can to stop it. So it just needs to be out there that we don't want this. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Robert C.
Good evening. My name is Robert Carpenter, Carpenter. I live at 267 Summer Street in Duxbury, and I appreciate the opportunity to comment to the panel. Thank you for putting this together. I have several questions of a technical nature. I have an engineering background, but I am not a certified engineer, but I would hope that the Energy Facilities Siting Board would seek specific answers to these questions and provide them to the public. It might help us understand the risks involved and also the nature of the industry and the role that Carver is playing in the industry. So I'll just throw them at you, and I don't expect answers this evening. The concerns that have been raised seem to have to do with the power density of the installation and proximity to residences. So how does this installation compare, either in Massachusetts or nationally, in terms of its energy density per acre as proposed and in its maximum build out to other installations? And how do those statistics compare to proximity to residential areas and density of residential areas? These are very straightforward figures that can be calculated and should be known before a decision is made on an installation such as this. Further, having to do with the actual nature of the installation, do we know what the anticipated rate of rise within these containers would be under maximal load conditions or under maximal charge conditions, and how will those characteristics change over the life cycle of the installation? And in terms of that type of question, what is the anticipated or planned nominal operating temperature range of this installation? I believe that we are going to be facing much higher ambient temperatures in the summertime in this area. And if it's planned to operate up to 110 degrees Fahrenheit, and the temperatures reach up to 125 degrees Fahrenheit in this area, what will that do to this installation? These are very practical considerations. These are very real considerations, and these numbers should be available to this board, and they should be considered before a decision is made. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. I'd like to give the company an opportunity to respond if they'd like to any of the questions that Mr. Carpenter just raised. If not, let me know, we can move on. But if you have answers to any of the questions and feel that you might be able to shed some light on some of his questions, please feel free to do so.
We appreciate everybody's comments. We've been taking notes, and we'd like to respond at some point at a later time, but not today.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next commenter is Cotter. Don't know, that's, don't have a first name, just Cotter.
They seem to have dropped off. Are they still there?
No.
Okay.
We'll welcome back Cotter if they reappear. If there are any additional commenters who would like to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom icon. Okay, here we go. Mr. Farini is raising his hand. I will move him back to the panel.
Thank you. Mr. Farini.
Yes, I have just to go along with the last presenter. If they could tell us what their predicted failure rate is. I work in manufacturing. I am a head of a quality department. And especially medical, I work in medical, and we have to determine what our predicted failure rates are. And this should be part of what this team should be able to present to us or to the board, so we know what type of failures are predicted going forward. Thank you very much.
Thank
Again,
you.
my name is Dan Farini, Ferrini, 84 Fosdick Road, Carver. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Duggan, once again.
Mr. Duggan. You're on mute again, sir. Mr. Duggan?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. I see the unmute thing there. Oh, that's the other thing too. It'd be nice to do this back in person in one room. You know, that'd be kind of cool. Anyhow, my point was, as listening to everybody, is would the people who are proposing this want this in their backyard? Would they want to walk out on their deck and see and look at this, or go take a walk around the neighborhood and see, you know, 100 of these things in the yard? Even if everything could be guaranteed, even if we were all going to be given $1 million if the thing blew up and we lost our homes, or the people near it lost their homes, I still wouldn't want to look at it, you know. So that was just, you know, one of many thoughts that come up, but that's what I wanted to bring up. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak? Anyone, Andy?
Yes.
Okay.
On and off. Howard Randall. I think he's back now. Hold on.
Okay. Mr. Randall. You're on mute, sir. If you can unmute. Thank you.
Here we go.
Yes.
Thank you. That's better.
Yes, much.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Donald Howard Randall, Jr. I live at 2 Prospect Road, Plimpton, Massachusetts. I've had 30 years of public life in the town of Plimpton and in the Plymouth County, serving on numerous boards, and eventually as a selectman and chairman for many, many years. My father served 30 years in public life in the neighboring town of Halifax. My uncle spent 50 years on the Board of Health in Randolph. And a member of my family way back when was the governor of the colonies. It's unconscionable to me that the state would come in and ask to override the will of the people. I attended the outside. I didn't attend the meeting, but I did stand outside when the town meeting was held. And I'd never seen such a response in our small communities in my 30 years in public life and my 80 years on this earth. And to me, what a waste of time I will take from this. And my father and my uncle and all others who have served on boards. I've served on planning boards, wage and personnel, Board of Selectmen, you name it. To see us overridden by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. I'm not a big proponent of solar, and I often refer to it as solar foolishness. And while in their statements, the proponents argued that there were no pine barrens, or won't be any pine barrens destroyed. You don't have to drive very far from downtown Carver to see the horrible conditions that are taking place throughout not only Carver, but Plymouth and Wareham, where large-scale solar is going in. And it's kind of fortuitous, I think, that just yesterday or the day before, one of the outfits that levels these places and brings the wood, our valuable pine barren wood, back to their processing plant in Middleborough, went up in flames. The auto ignition, spontaneous ignition of their piles of our precious pine barrens took multiple towns to put out. And it came to mind that this might be the case in Carver. I know why you're here, proponents in Carver, and we've seen you in Plimpton. We're an easy mark, and our leadership has let us down. This never should have gotten this far, and I would hope that the state doesn't co-opt our rights and carry it further. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have another commenter, Mike Jazerski.
All right. Are you able to hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I appreciate the panel having this venue for folks to, speak their piece with regards to this. I'd like to point out one comment.
If we could, before you begin, I'm sorry, I've been telling people all night that, so just make sure you say your name and spell your last name.
Yeah,
and then
sure.
your address. Those are important.
You get it. Michael Jezierski, Jezierski, 25 Williams Drive, Carver, Massachusetts. So one of the things I'd like to kind of point out was one of the comments that the Cranberry Point folks made was that the system would self-extinguish, and that's a bit of a misnomer there. They just burn out. When all the material has finished burning, and that's kind of how that works. There are some safer battery solutions out there, molten metal solutions that the only risk they pose is they stop working if they cool down. They aren't at risk of catching fire. So there are solutions for this that, if implemented, don't pose nearly the safety issues from a fire perspective that these batteries do. So that the lithium ions do in particular. So that was all I really had to say, but thank you.
Thank you.
No other hands raised as of now.
Okay.
Oh, excuse me. Mr. Duggan.
Mr. Duggan.
Wait, I'm mute anyhow. All right, you can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. The other thing that with all these solar arrays, sand mining, is one right up the street from me, is it's antithetical to what the town of Carver and a lot of small towns are. The rural quality of the town needs to be protected, as well as the natural resources of the town, the sand. And to drive in and coming in from, say, Wareham, you go by a bog that has 3,500 telephone poles driven into it to put solar panels on. People who come to Carver to look at cranberries being harvested, not telephone poles. And even though this may be off the beaten path a little bit, it seems like something that would be put into an industrial area. And again, I want to emphasize that this is a residential area. If you guys were able to be beamed down here, you would see that these are all homes around it. So that was all. I'll try and keep my thoughts contained in the future days. Thanks again for letting me talk.
Thank you again.
Okay, Mr. Jabot, I believe that is the last commenter.
Thank you. Before we conclude this evening, I'd like to remind everyone of the opportunity to participate in the evidentiary hearing if you desire. We would encourage anyone who does seek to participate to review the information on different types of participation that is listed in the public comment hearing notice for this proceeding and on the Siting Board's website. If you would like a copy of the notice and intervention rules, please send your contact information to my email, which will be shown at the end of this presentation in a moment. And I can send you the information by email. There it is right there. Any written comments that you might wish to file or any petitions to participate further in the evidentiary hearings should be sent to me at my email address. And for those of you on the phone, it's my name, andre.jabot @mass.gov. That's ANDRE.GIBEAU @mass.gov. Comments are due by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, July 26th of 2022, and petitions to participate as an intervener or interested person are also due by 5 p.m. on Tuesday, July 26th, 2022. In addition, any petitions or comments must be sent by email or email attachment to Counsel for Cranberry Point Energy Storage, Andrew O. Kaplan, Esquire, of the firm of Pierce Atwood. His email address is akaplan @pierceatwood.com. That's PIERCEATWOOD.com. If you have access to email and want a clarification on anything that I have said during this hearing, please email me. If not, please call or write before Tuesday, July 26th of 2022, which is the deadline for receipt of public comment in this docket. I'd like to thank everyone for your participation in the hearing tonight. That concludes the public comment hearing for EFSB 2102/DPU 2259. Thank you, everybody, and have a good evening. We're off the record now.